Texas Tech, and it's only gotten better. But you laid the groundwork, and there goes Torres. He beats Jackson on the outside. Down the sideline, Alex Torres inside the 10. Dives. Sideline in or out. He's pumped out of bounds. Where are they going to put it? Right at the 4.
Yeah, it's that time. It's time for the OU post-game show. 4 years ago when Oklahoma lost in Lubbock to Texas Tech, a lot of people can blame that game on the officiating because of the questionable calls, including the one in which Henderson, the Tech running back, didn't look like he scored, but the officials gave him the touchdown anyway. Again, horrible call. 2 years ago, a lot of people could blame the Oklahoma loss in Lubbock because Bradford got a concussion very early and didn't play the remainder of the game. So that's understandable. However, in 2009 today, Oklahoma loses and loses big to Texas Tech. I don't care what the final score says. Oklahoma actually lost worse than what the score showed. You can blame this one all on Oklahoma. They were dominated on the offensive and defensive lines. And even worse, Oklahoma did not play with this. That's right, they didn't play with the mentality of a winner, and they also didn't play with heart. Texas Tech had all the emotion. Texas Tech outcoached Oklahoma. They outplayed Oklahoma. It's an embarrassing loss for Oklahoma. It's not because they lost to Texas Tech, but it's the way Oklahoma played. From early in the second quarter to the end of the game, Oklahoma got their butts kicked. It wasn't like the other 4 losses where you could say Oklahoma could have beaten Nebraska, where they could have beaten the mighty Texas Longhorns, to where they could have won at Miami, and where they should have won in Dallas against BYU. This was a pasting from which Bob Stoops had not experienced since the West Virginia game at the Fiesta Bowl 2 seasons ago. This was an embarrassing loss for Oklahoma, who now are going to have to rethink things over because you have Bedlam coming up, and now Oklahoma has to play this game against Oklahoma State, not for a berth to the Big 12 championship game, not for a berth to a BCS Bowl. Oklahoma's not playing this game against Oklahoma State to play on New Year's Day at the Cotton Bowl or at the Holiday Bowl. Oklahoma is playing this game against Oklahoma State to try to avoid Shreveport. That's right, they're playing for Independence Bowl annihilation. To not go to the trashy Independence Bowl. And Oklahoma now is another loss away from that becoming a reality. Give Texas Tech credit, okay? Don't get me wrong. Give the student, Mike Leach, who was an assistant under Bob Stoops for 1 year at Oklahoma back in '99 as offensive coordinator. Give the student credit over Bob Stoops, the teacher. Because it was Leach today who owned Oklahoma. They mixed it up brilliantly on offense, okay? They mixed it up wonderfully. It was obvious to me watching this game that Texas Tech was going to mix things up. Okay, you never know what you're going to get from Texas Tech. We said that during the weekly matchup show. You never know what you're going to get with Texas Tech. But in this game, it was obvious that Baron Batch, the Texas Tech running back, Texas Tech was going to have him touch the ball as many times as humanly possible, and he did. He rushed well over 100 yards. He had more yards rushing than Roy Helu Jr. of Nebraska did a few games ago against Oklahoma, and I thought Helu Jr. played pretty darn good. Well, I thought that the rushing performance of Texas Tech was just as good by Batch, and also Batch caught the ball. Caught the ball a lot. He was their second leading receiver on the day. And then Alex Torres torched Oklahoma all day long. We'll talk more about that in a second. But another key component in this game was the Texas Tech defense. That's right, the defense. You don't think of defense when you think of Texas Tech. But on this day, Oklahoma could not establish a running game, and Landry Jones got a lot of pressure, which we'll also talk about in a second. Here's the bottom line, okay? This wasn't like the other 4 losses for Oklahoma. This was a blowout. This was a rout. The touchdown that Broyles scored was meaningless. As a matter of fact, good job, Broyles, celebrating when your team's getting beat by 3 touchdowns and you get an unsportsmanlike conduct call and a butt tune from Bob Stoops. Yeah, way to go, Broyles. Did play a good game, but again, hot dogging when your team's getting killed. That's really smart. By the way, before we get into the 4 keys of the game that we highlighted earlier, tell me the biggest win Oklahoma's had this year, okay, was against Texas A&M, who's not bowl eligible yet. Was it against Kansas? And we all know the direction they're going in the heat that Mark Mangino's under right now. Was it against Tulsa, a Conference USA team? Was it against Kansas State, who still isn't bowl eligible? Was it against Baylor? Okay. Was it against Idaho State? We know that wasn't. But the point is, Oklahoma has not had one marquee win this year, which tells me that Oklahoma is back to being an average program. Sooner fans are not going to want to hear that, but that's exactly what Oklahoma is. And don't think because the game's in Norman this upcoming week that it's a guarantee that Oklahoma is going to beat Oklahoma State. They don't have as much to play for now as OSU does. OSU's thinking about a BCS Bowl. Oklahoma is trying to avoid Shreveport and the Independence Bowl. Number one, Oklahoma defensive secondary. Make sure you have it covered. Huge thumbs down, way down for Oklahoma. Taylor Potts had over 400 yards passing in the game. It didn't matter if he was throwing it to Batts, the back, or if he was throwing it to Torres, the wide receiver, or to whomever had a Texas Tech jersey on. Potts made Oklahoma pay. Again, a huge passing day for Taylor Potts. And unlike the Oklahoma State game, Mike Leach left Taylor Potts in the entire game, and Oklahoma just assumed that he hadn't done that because Potts owned Oklahoma's secondary like a used car. So thumbs down there. Number two, be sharp on Brandon Sharp, meaning Oklahoma offensive line. You must contain the defensive end for the Red Raiders, Brandon Sharp. Another thumbs down. We talked about this on the weekly matchup show. Second in the Big 12 in sacks. He came in with 10.5 sacks. Add 3 more to that total. That's right, he had 3 sacks today on Landry Jones, but it wasn't just him. It was also the other defensive end plus the interior in general. The Texas Tech defensive line won this game. This is a big reason why Texas Tech defense has improved big time. So hats off to Tech, but also thumbs down to Oklahoma's offensive line. By the way, another injury. Looked like Ben Haber in the center got injured in the game, did not come back. So his status for Oklahoma State as of right now is unknown. And that's all Oklahoma needed was another injury on the offensive line. Number 3, the turnover war. We're going to go thumbs off because the turnovers really did not have a bearing in the outcome of the game, just the final score basically. Oklahoma did have a couple of turnovers and interception by Landry Jones, but also out of the Wildcat formation, Ryan Broyles tried to throw a touchdown pass in the end zone, but that got picked. But that's not why Oklahoma lost the game. It was because of the way Tech's defense played in general against Oklahoma. And not to mention how well Texas Tech's offense played in the game. And then here's a big one. Key number 4 to this game. We're talking about another receiver coming through besides Ryan Broyles. A big-time thumbs down. I thought DeJuan Miller at times had moments, but the biggest reason why I'm giving Oklahoma a thumbs down in this department is because of number 80, Adron Tunnell. Look, defense is facing number 80. Do yourself a favor. Don't even bother covering number 80 for Oklahoma because he's not going to hurt you at all. In fact, he might even help you. I'll talk about that in a second. But Adron Tunnell stinks. That's the bottom line. He stinks. He dropped passes, and when he does catch a pass, he doesn't know where he's at because he'll step out of bounds in the back of the end zone. And here's something. He'll help the defense by catching a pass, but before he catches it, he's going to push off the defender in front of everybody, including God, and there's going to be a 15-yard penalty called against Tunnell for pass interference. Adron Tunnell is useless. Don't throw it to him anymore, Landry Jones. Please, bring Cameron Kinney back, do something. But throw it more to Broyles, throw it more to DeJuan Miller. But Adron Tunnell is a complete waste of a scholarship. What a disappointment he is. 41-13, Texas Tech embarrasses Oklahoma. And again, unlike the other 4 losses, which were within a score, this one was all Red Raiders. And again, for some reason, when Oklahoma comes to West Texas, they forget not only how to play football, but they forget how to play the game with heart and with brains because they had neither today. It was Texas Tech who had the brains and Texas Tech who acted like they wanted to win this game. So now for Oklahoma, what do? You get killed. You get embarrassed. And for some reason, when Oklahoma plays in West Texas, they forget to play the game with emotion, because Texas Tech had all the emotion. You can tell it on their sideline. You could tell it when they were on the field. They played with emotion. Yeah, they got called for taunting a time or two, but it also tells you that they played the game with a little more emotion and wanted to win this game a little bit more, and actually a lot more than Oklahoma. Just because the Sooners are at home next week for Bedlam, don't think it's an automatic W. Remember, it's Oklahoma who will be playing spoilers trying to prevent Oklahoma State from going to a BCS Bowl. Bet you never thought you'd say that in your lifetime, that OU would be the spoiler against Oklahoma State in football. Man, how times have changed. Again, final score, Texas Tech 41, Oklahoma 13. OU drops to 6-5 now in the season, 4-3 in the Big 12. Catch you next time.